Hey, this is Chad with Drawn and Cornered. It is October 11th, 2021, and here are the news stories that occurred over the weekend that you need to know about. First off, we need to get into Joe Biden's OSHA mandate that all companies over 100 employees get the vaccine or force their employees to get a vaccine or face serious consequences as far as fines are concerned and others. A bunch of larger companies picked up this mantle and started making their employees get vaccines and pushing this mandate as though it was a real thing. The thing that's very interesting is this is a few weeks ago now. That mandate has never occurred. That regulation has never happened. OSHA has never been given that directive. The Biden administration saying that this is vitally important to the health of this nation has never actually put this into practice. And the reason they haven't put it into practice is because it likely would be struck down as unconstitutional and bring forth a whole bevy of legal issues on the administration. So he just said this is something that he was going to do. And all that does is allow companies to make that next step and mandate this to kind of get out ahead of it and provide cover for companies who want to mandate this to their employees. It's something that hasn't been pushed out. It's something that is not a regulation. It is something that is still at this point simply companies voluntarily doing this on their own with the cover from the administration. When he says that this is a safety issue, he's lying to you. This is not a safety issue because otherwise they would actually mandate it and go through the fire of the legal issues necessary to make this actually happen. He knows that's not happening, so he just makes companies do his dirty work for him, while allowing them to say, hey, the president told us that we had to do this, so we're doing this. So ultimately, you can't blame anyone. You can't blame the government because they didn't actually mandate it. You can't blame the company because they're just responding to the government. It's entirely a ruse to make this a possibility without any blame being shifted around. And we're seeing the problems with this mentality from Southwest over this weekend. Over this weekend, they canceled 2,000 flights because 30% of their staff said, we're not doing it, and opted to retire, to get fired, or to leave before being forced to get this mandate. Southwest then had to cancel 2,000 flights. They said it was because of weather and other scheduling issues, but that doesn't make any sense. The amount of weather necessary, like we're talking storms over 90% of this country, like full-on blizzards over 90% of this country. That's how you cancel 2,000 flights. Southwest canceling 2,000 flights has nothing to do with anything other than the loss of employees and people that are just refusing to do their work because they're being mandated behind this. And this is the great and insidious little problem here, is that because Southwest is willing to lie, because the president is willing to lie, and because this vaccine mandate is being pushed so heavily and so in such a draconian fashion, if Southwest just simply came forward and told the people, hey, this is happening because our employees are leaving because they won't get the vaccine, you would find the pushback from the American public saying, no, stop doing it then. Because I would far more be interested in having an unvaccinated pilot or an unvaccinated flight attendant than not being able to get my flight that was scheduled for 3 months to get to my vacation. People would be sick of this in a moment. If you told them the reason their restaurants aren't open, the reason their businesses aren't operating, the reason that they can't get the supplies that they want is because of a vaccine mandate that is being falsely pushed down by our government and falsely enforced by companies, is the reason why you're having trouble getting this economy back on track, getting the goods that you need, and getting the type of services that you expect. That is a problem. And as soon as the American people start waking up to the fact that that's exactly what's happening, this all ends. COVID is over. It doesn't need to be an issue. The unvaccinated don't care about COVID, and they're the ones who are susceptible to COVID. So if that's the way it's going to be, that's up to them. If you're vaccinated, you're fine. It's over. We don't have to be worried about this. This isn't affecting kids. Kids are safer unvaccinated than many vaccinated adults. This is not an issue. Let's stop making it an issue. Let's stop thinking it's an issue. And the only reason Joe Biden continues to push it as an issue is because this is how the $3.5 trillion bill with enormous amounts of entitlements and growth to the federal government gets pushed further. It's all going to be done as a help for COVID issues. If all of this bounces back and we're all okay, that bill disappears in a moment and his presidency is essentially over. The second story one that got a lot bigger. I don't typically try and cover entertainment type stories, but Dave Chappelle's new Netflix special has created a massive stir amongst trans allies, LGBTQ partners and such, saying that what he has pushed out is transphobic and terrible. And a lot of these people are even fans of Dave Chappelle's in previous times, saying that he makes fun of everybody. He's kind of an equal opportunity offender, but he's gone too far with the transphobic comments in this one and some of the things he said. Now, some of the things he said are essentially just that a woman is what birthed us all, and the idea that you can be a man or a woman just at will doesn't seem like a reasonable take on the world, and we can't really operate without an understanding of what things are and are not. It can't just be fluid all the time. Those are the transphobic comments, and he's being hammered for this. And it brought to my mind something very specific, why comedy is such an essential part, at least of American culture, and something that's so important to the way that we discuss hard topics. And it was another comic, it might have even been George Carlin, that initially had said that comics can tread in places that otherwise you wouldn't be able to talk about. They can have the hard conversations, or at least broach those hard conversations with humor, because both sides of that argument can get invested in it without having to feel any real feelings about it. So racism was talked about far earlier by comics than it was by the general public. Women's rights were talked far earlier about comics than they were in the general public. Things like that. The pushing of taboos by comics allows us to step in behind them and have the actual tangible conversations that are necessary. And this is what's so vitally important about what Dave Chappelle is saying. Dave Chappelle is saying the thing that so many people are thinking, but can't say because they'll be ousted from their jobs, they'll be ousted from their community events, they'll be banished by society, they'll be taken down in cancel culture. This is what's so great about the steps that he's willing to take forward. And I'm not going to say hero, because we've got legitimate heroes out there. We've got people that are putting their lives on the line. But at bare minimum, he's putting his livelihood on the line. And so far, it seems to have gone his direction. And I think that's because, again, massive quantities of people have felt silence. Massive quantities of people have felt like they couldn't say it. But if they're willing to laugh at it, and they're willing to go a little bit further, and they're willing to have this very high-profile person that's saying the same things that they're thinking, that opens the gate a little bit for that conversation. That opens that gate a little bit to say, wait a second. This has all happened very, very quickly, but why is a man capable of saying they're a woman? Why does that mean anything? Like, what is a woman if a man can just say he's a woman and become a woman? Then we have no definition of what a woman is at that point. And if it is somebody that can give birth, that can get pregnant, then that's a definition that we can all respond to and understand. And at least those questions can be asked without being shut out and considered transphobic and not an ally and an enemy of all of these different people. Those conversations need to be had. And we need to come to terms with the idea that just because it's hard and just because somebody questions something doesn't mean they're necessarily negating your being or who you are or who you want to be or your realized self or actualized self. All of those things are secondary to what we know as truth and definitions and standards that we can all sort of live by and operate in. And that's why Dave Chappelle is doing great work by opening those doors a little bit further, by kicking in those issues with a little bit of force, albeit through humor, but that allows people to have those conversations afterwards and through that humor that are absolutely necessary and extraordinarily important. So those are your news points for the day. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is Drawn and Cornered. This is Chad. We do these every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you like this sort of content with a little bit of news, a little bit of analysis, subscribe down below, hit that bell so you get notifications every time we upload a new video, and I will see you again tomorrow.